Welcome to the Lionhearted Way educational series. I am Katie Hurstwicker, CEO and founder of Arizona Lionhearts. We're excited to bring you this training series designed to foster courageous and competent care for our Lionhearted members, while ensuring our Lionhearted providers feel supported and confident in their roles. In today's diverse healthcare environment, cultural competency isn't just an asset, it's essential. In this comprehensive training on cultural competency and care, we will explore how to provide respectful, effective care across cultural, religious, family, and individual boundaries. Here is an overview of what you can expect in this video. We will discuss the following key topics: redefining cultural competence beyond surface-level training, understanding privilege and authenticity, and creating real change. Let's begin with the redefining of cultural competence. What comes to mind when you hear cultural competency training? For many, it's a familiar scene. Once a year, you are required to watch a presentation. You watch the presentation, you check the box. But is this really creating change? Even with numerous cultural competency trainings in our schools, companies, and government, we still lack effective cultural understanding. To understand why we need to redefine cultural competence, let's look at the real impact of poor cultural understanding in our institutions. In education, Black boys and girls are 3 and 6 times more likely to be suspended for the same behaviors as their peers. In healthcare, even with equal access to care, disparities persist, such as maternal mortality rates. In technology, even devices like pulse oximeters are less accurate on darker skin. Dr. Daryl Wing Su, a professor of psychology at Columbia University, coined the term cultural competence. When doing this, he emphasized something crucial, something important, that is often forgotten. He said, it's impossible to be fully versed in any culture in your lifetime. The goal isn't perfect knowledge, it's continuous growth and authentic engagement. Cultural competence isn't about memorizing facts or checking boxes. It is not being highly educated on racial, ethnic, national, family, marginalized, or neurodiverse cultures. It's about building genuine connections, understanding systemic impacts, and committing to continuous learning. Cultural competence isn't a skill to master. It's a commitment to growth. It's understanding that every interaction is an opportunity to learn and improve. Real cultural competence means recognizing our own biases and blind spots, understanding systemic impacts, committing to continuous learning, taking concrete action for change. Next, let's go deep into understanding cultural competency. Let's visualize racism and bias as a tree. What we often see and address in training are the branches. Often these are microaggressions in daily interactions, discrimination in hiring and promotion, stereotype threats in academic settings, and communication barriers in healthcare. The visible symptoms are what we often point out and discuss when addressing cultural competency. However, it's the hidden factors that require our attention. The roots, not the tree, are the real issues. To create lasting change, we must tackle these roots. The roots are systemic racism that are embedded in policies, historical inequities in education and healthcare, unconscious bias in decision-making, and cultural assumptions in professional standards. Let's talk about the roots. First, what does it mean to have systemic racism embedded in policies? When we talk about systemic racism in policies, we're not just talking about obviously discriminatory rules. We're talking about policies that may appear neutral on the surface, but create or maintain racial disparities in practice. Let's look at something as simple as appearance. Many individuals have expectations about normal, neat, or professional hairstyles. But what's considered normal or professional? Often these expectations are based on European standards of appearance, effectively discriminating against natural Black hairstyles. This is why the Crown Act, creating a respectful and open world of natural hair, had to be created. The Crown Act was created in 2019 by Dove and the Crown Coalition in partnership with then State Senator Holly J. Mitchell of California to ensure protection against discrimination based on race-based hairstyles by extending statutory protection to hair texture and protective styles such as braids, locks, twists, and knots in the workplace and public schools. In healthcare, look at standard pain assessment protocols. Studies show that medical students and residents often hold false beliefs about biological differences between different racial and ethnic patients. This leads to documented disparities in pain management, where Black and Hispanic patients are less likely to receive adequate pain medication for the same conditions. Consider housing policies. While redlining, the practice of denying services to specific neighborhoods based on racial demographic, was officially banned, its effects continue. Today's race-neutral lending criteria still disproportionately impact communities of color through factors like credit score requirements and down payment minimums, which are influenced by historical wealth disparities. Addressing systemic racism in policies requires us to 1. Examine the actual impact of policies, not just their stated intent. 2. Listen to affected communities. 3. Consider historical context. And 4. Make concrete changes, not just symbolic gestures. Now let's examine the next root in our tree. What are some of the historical inequities in education and healthcare? To understand today's disparities in education and healthcare, we must first understand their historical roots. These aren't just stories from the past, they're living legacies that continue to shape outcomes today. The story of educational inequality didn't end with Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. Even after legal segregation ended, schools remained deeply unequal through property tax-based school funding, tracking systems that disproportionately place students of color in lower academic tracks, disparities in advanced course offerings, and unequal access to experienced teachers. Today, these historical inequities manifest as funding gaps of $23 billion between predominantly white and predominantly non-white school districts, significant disparities in AP course offerings, differences in teacher experience and retention rates, and gaps in college preparation resources. These aren't just numbers. They represent real barriers to opportunity that compound over generations. In healthcare, historical inequities have created deep-seated disparities and distrust. Consider the following historical events. The Tuskegee syphilis study was a medical experiment that ran from 1932 to 1972 in Macon County, Alabama. For 40 years, Public Health Service researchers conducted a study on hundreds of African American men with syphilis, but never told them they had the disease. Instead, they were told they had bad blood and were receiving free treatment. The truth was far darker. These men were deliberately left untreated, even after penicillin became the standard cure for syphilis in 1947. The researchers wanted to observe how the disease progressed when left untreated, watching as the men suffered and died. The study only ended in 1972 when a whistleblower exposed it to the press. The aftermath led to major changes: a multi-million-dollar settlement for victims, sweeping reforms in medical research practices, and the establishment of the National Center for Bioethics at Tuskegee University. In the 1840s in Montgomery, Alabama, J. Marion Sims conducted a series of surgical experiments on enslaved women without anesthesia. Though he would later be called the father of modern gynecology, his medical advances came at a horrific cost to these women who had no choice in their participation. For 4 years, Sims performed countless painful operations on enslaved women, including Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy. Anarcha alone endured 30 surgeries without anesthesia. These women were treated as test subjects, while Sims perfected his surgical techniques for treating vesicovaginal fistula, a childbirth injury. Despite the availability of anesthesia at the time, Sims claimed Black people didn't feel pain the same way white people did, a racist belief common in that era. Once he perfected his technique, he later performed the same operations on white women, but with anesthesia. His actions represent a medical history that highlights the exploitation of Black bodies in the name of medical advancement, and the ongoing need to confront racism in healthcare. In 1951, a pivotal moment in medical history occurred that would forever change our understanding of human biology and raise profound ethical questions about medical consent and research practices. Henrietta Lacks, a young African-American woman, sought treatment for cervical cancer at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. During her treatment, doctors collected samples of her cancer cells without her knowledge or consent, a common but ethically questionable practice at the time. These cells, later named HeLa, proved extraordinary. Unlike other human cells in laboratories, Henrietta's cells continue to divide and multiply indefinitely. This unique characteristic made them invaluable for medical research, leading to groundbreaking developments including the polio vaccine, advancements in HIV and cancer treatments, and even recent COVID-19 vaccines. However, this scientific breakthrough came at a cost to human dignity. The Lax family remained unaware of their mother's crucial contribution to medicine for decades. While her cells revolutionized medical science, saving countless lives, the ethical implications of using them without consent have sparked important discussions about patient rights, medical ethics, and racial justice in healthcare. Let's explore the third root in our tree. What does it mean to have unconscious bias in decision making? Every day we make thousands of decisions. Most of them, we believe, are rational and objective. But beneath the surface, unconscious biases shape these choices in ways we might not realize. Our brains process about 11 million bits of information every second, but we can consciously process only about 40 bits. To manage this gap, our brains create shortcuts, and these shortcuts can lead to bias. These mental shortcuts can lead to snap judgments about people, automatic assumptions, unintentional stereotyping, and preference for familiarity. Studies show identical resumes receive different responses based solely on the perceived race or gender of the name at the top. Applications with traditionally white-sounding names receive 50% more callbacks than identical resumes with traditionally black-sounding names. Technical job applications from women face 35% more rejections than identical applications from men. In healthcare, unconscious bias can literally be a matter of life and death. Women's heart attack symptoms are more likely to be dismissed. Elderly patients' symptoms are more often attributed to age rather than investigated and explored. Even the way we interpret student behavior can be influenced by unconscious bias. The same behavior can be labeled as energetic versus disruptive. There are different expectations for academic performance, and we can have varying interpretations of student questions or challenges. Recognizing unconscious bias is an essential step that begins with a deep dive into understanding common patterns that influence our thoughts and actions. One such pattern is affinity bias. This is our natural tendency to connect and feel more comfortable with people who share similarities with us, such as background, interests, or experiences. It often leads us to favor those who are like us without conscious thought. Another common bias is confirmation bias. This is the inclination to seek out and interpret information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs or opinions, often overlooking or dismissing evidence that contradicts them. This bias reinforces our existing perspectives, making it difficult to see beyond our own point of view. Attribution bias is another prevalent bias. This occurs when we judge others' actions differently than our own. For instance, we may attribute our own mistakes to external circumstances while blaming others' mistakes on their character. This bias can skew our perceptions and lead to unfair evaluations. Here are steps to combat unconscious bias. Slow down. Pause and reflect on your reactions. Snap judgments can be biased. Evaluate your initial thoughts and consider alternative approaches. This leads to more thoughtful and fair outcomes. Use structured processes. Create clear criteria for decisions. Use standardized forms to ensure consistency and reduce bias, focusing on objective measures. This leads to equitable outcomes and provides a transparent framework for all involved. Seek different perspectives. Include varied viewpoints. Diversity in discussions minimizes bias. It illuminates blind spots and challenges assumptions. Foster an inclusive environment where diverse voices are included. Check your assumptions. Question your conclusions. Reflect on whether they are evidence-based. Be open to the possibility of flawed understanding. This self-awareness leads to more accurate decisions. Unconscious bias isn't about being a bad person, it's about being human. The key is recognizing it, challenging it, and actively working to make better decisions. Lastly, let's talk about the final root of our tree. What are cultural assumptions in professional or normal standards or expectations? What makes someone appropriate? When we talk about professional or appropriate standards, we often assume these standards are neutral. But many of our ideas about appropriateness are actually rooted in specific cultural assumptions. Examining appearance standards. Hair and appearance. Studies show Black women are 1.5 times more likely to be sent home due to hair judged by biased beauty standards. This affects professional life and self-esteem. Appropriate hair perceptions are often Eurocentric, ignoring black hair's natural beauty. Appropriate attire. Corporate dress codes often favor Western attire, ignoring cultural dress like traditional African, indigenous, religious clothing, or sensory needs of the neurodiverse. Religious clothing hold cultural meaning and deserves respect in all settings. Tight or itchy clothing can be physically excruciating for those with sensory needs. Let's look at communication. First, speaking styles. Normal or professional communication often reflects white Western middle class norms. This includes direct eye contact, which varies by culture and ability. Volume and tone of voice differ across backgrounds and abilities. Silence is either powerful or awkward depending on the culture or ability. Emotion expression varies during communication. Next, written communication. Written standards can reflect cultural bias. Western norms favor directness, which might clash with other styles and abilities. Formality expectations vary. One culture's formality might seem rigid to another. Greeting styles and English variants also affect how communication is judged, often revealing biases that aren't universally shared. Let's examine assumptions about work styles, productivity, and habits with our clients and coworkers. Starting with time and schedule, our views often reflect cultural values and abilities. Some prioritize strict schedules, others prefer flexibility. Consider individual versus collective decision-making. Some value independence, others prefer group consensus. Similarly, competition versus cooperation varies. Some thrive independently, others in teamwork. Work-life boundaries also differ, with some keeping them separate, others blending them. Understanding these differences helps in diverse environments. Moving on to success metrics. Traditional metrics often celebrate individual achievement, overshadowing group success. Assertiveness is key for success but can overshadow contemplation. Focus is often on immediate results, less on long-term collaboration. Direct self-promotion is encouraged but can overlook modest contributions and quiet, impactful work. To create inclusive environments with clients and coworkers, we need to question our assumptions. Ask why certain behaviors are normal. Reflect on their roots and impact and who they might exclude. Expand definitions. Recognize many ways to simply be. Embrace diversity as a strength in all areas. Rethink expectations. Create expectations embracing diversity. Encourage a culture valuing unique contributions for our clients and coworkers. Listen to experiences. Learn from diverse perspectives. Authentically engage with client and coworkers to better understand them. Professionalism with clients and coworkers should enable excellence, not enforce cultural conformity or ambiguous normality. They should support growth. By challenging assumptions, we create places where everyone thrives. Embracing diversity and different abilities unlocks potential and drives progress. Let's now talk about understanding privilege and authenticity. We often hear phrases like, just be yourself, or never apologize for bringing your whole you. But for many of our clients and coworkers, authenticity isn't just about personal choice. It's a privilege that some have and others don't. Consider something as fundamental as one's name.
I'm tired of having to choose between using my real name and facing constant mispronunciations, or using an Americanized nickname to make others comfortable.
In many settings, there's pressure to conform, known as code switching or masking. People change their speech and behavior to fit in, often feeling their true selves are unwelcome. This can lead to stress and anxiety. Being appropriate or normal often means changing speech and actions to fit certain norms. This can involve altering voice and body language. People may feel they live a double life, which can be exhausting and affect well-being. Communication often favors certain cultural or ability styles. Direct versus indirect, emotional versus stoic, verbal versus nonverbal. These reflect broader values, often aligning with the dominant culture. Emphasizing one style can alienate those from different backgrounds, stifling diversity. Constantly adjusting communication style is draining. It can impact all aspects of life. The disconnect between true self and presented persona can cause isolation or dysregulation. Valuing diverse styles can help reduce this burden, allowing individuals to thrive. Different cultures have unique ways to celebrate, mourn, and show respect. These differences highlight global diversity. Non-traditional holidays can be challenging for workplaces, but they help preserve culture. Ways of greeting and showing respect vary and influence interactions. Conflict resolution is guided by cultural norms.
When my grandmother died, I had to choose between my cultural mourning practices and workplace expectations. Balancing these was hard as I wanted to honor my grandmother. Those around me wanted me to reduce my grief to a few days. The pressure to get back to normal overshadowed my personal needs. I felt torn, struggling for balance.
Even something as simple as mealtime can highlight privilege. Reactions to different ethnic foods can vary greatly, depending on a person's background, experiences, or even just their mood that day. It's fascinating how assumptions about eating habits can shape our interactions. For instance, someone might be surprised to find out that a friend who looks a certain way doesn't eat the foods commonly associated with their ethnicity. Comments about food choices often reveal more about the speaker than the food itself, shedding light on personal biases or cultural stereotypes. And then there's the pressure to participate in food-related social events, which can be overwhelming. Some people might feel obligated to join in, even if they're not comfortable with the setting or the menu. These dynamics, though subtle, can affect relationships and social cohesion, making something as routine as a meal a complex social ritual. Food is an expression of culture, identity, and community. It tells stories of migration, adaptation, and survival. Sharing a meal is an opportunity to learn and connect with others. In this way, food can be a bridge between cultures, a path to empathy and respect. Nurturing authenticity requires effort to create an environment where everyone feels valued. This involves examining assumptions. Challenge what's seen as appropriate or normal to include diverse identities. Redefine normal to welcome everyone. Question appropriate to allow authentic expression. Leaders must show inclusive behavior. Regular training to support our clients, as well as our employees, helps everyone appreciate diversity and differences. Inclusion is about creating spaces where everyone feels free to be themselves. It goes beyond acceptance to celebrate each person's uniqueness. This fosters innovation and creativity, allowing clients and coworkers to share their best ideas and collaborate effectively. We are now at the final chapter of our training, making real change. To create spaces that are inclusive for those who are both neurodiverse, ability diverse, and culturally diverse, we must think beyond one-dimensional solutions. Cultural competence means more than checking boxes. It's about real change that respects identity and needs, making everyone feel valued. Let's see how we can drive this change, especially at Arizona Lionhearts with the DDD community. Understand that cultures view development and neurodiversity uniquely, shaping care and support. Family is often central. Extended family roles in caregiving affect decisions and support networks. Community support is vital, offering resources. Generational views impact perceptions of development and neurodiversity. Cultural beliefs shape views on development. Traditional healing may complement or differ from conventional methods. Religious beliefs influence understanding of developmental differences, while community expectations guide support and inclusion. Communication should consider name pronunciation, language, decision makers, and scheduling. Adapt physical spaces. Provide quiet rooms, signage in key languages, family meeting areas, and visual schedules. Use resource tools. Guides on cultural practices, language cards, interpreter lists, family involvement protocols, and scenario practice sessions. Genuinely engage individuals and their families. Hold feedback sessions. Celebrate their cultural events. Modify your support plans, and document goals and successes. Let's talk communication strategies. Start by ensuring respect through effective communication. Create a guide to help pronounce team members' names correctly. Record how names are pronounced and practice them before meetings. Ask for feedback and note preferences for communication styles, such as written or spoken, direct or indirect, and any need for extra processing time. Create a communication framework. Employ cultural interpreters and gather translated materials. Learn about your client's communication style and ability. Familiarize yourself with communication devices and preferences. Emphasize family-centered communication. Learn about family decision-making processes and preferred meeting times. Take cultural factors into account. Prepare a checklist for family consultations, required participants, meeting preparation, and follow-ups. Develop consistent communication strategies. Hold regular check-ins, monthly family meetings, quarterly reviews, and plan cultural celebrations. Record practices, track successes, identify changes, and update protocols when necessary. To create inclusive environments, it's important to understand how different identities intersect, including cultural, neurodiverse, and ability-diverse identities. Let's explore 5 actions to make daily interactions more inclusive. Start with inclusive assessments. Consider language needs, cultural factors, family input, and sensory preferences. Translate materials, adjust timing, and provide various response options. Next, design flexible support systems. Use adaptable strategies that account for cultural, sensory, and communication needs. Modify teaching methods and environments to suit individual preferences. Monitor progress collaboratively. Set up systems that respect family goals and cultural values. Hold regular meetings to discuss progress and make necessary adjustments. Create inclusive physical spaces. Design environments that cater to sensory, cultural, and accessibility needs. Use adjustable lighting, quiet areas, and diverse seating options. Last, build feedback systems. Establish channels for continuous feedback, including anonymous suggestions and regular discussions. Track and implement changes based on this input. Remember, these steps are ongoing practices that require regular review and adjustment. Begin with what you have and continue to build from there. Remember Dr. Daryl Wing Su? He said, "It's impossible to be fully versed in any culture in your lifetime. The goal isn't perfect knowledge, it's continuous growth and authentic engagement." To conclude our training, cultural competence isn't about memorizing or checking off another required training. It's not about being highly informed on racial, ethnic, national, family, or marginalized cultures. It's about forming real connections, understanding systemic effects, and being dedicated to lifelong learning. Cultural competency is a journey, not a destination. Every step towards understanding and inclusion truly impacts those we support. Thank you for taking this journey with us through the Lionhearted Way Cultural Competency Training Series. Remember, cultural competence is a lifelong commitment to growth, understanding, and creating spaces where everyone truly belongs. Like a lion's courage, may you carry this knowledge forward with strength and dedication to making real change in your communities. Together, we can create a world where every voice is heard, every story matters, and every person feels valued.